Welcome back to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon TCG content as well as gaming videos, so if either of those things interest you, be sure to subscribe down below as I would really appreciate it, and give this video a like if you enjoy it at any point. In today's Theme Deck Tuesday, we're reviewing the Twilight Rogue deck featuring Lycanroc as well as a host of other Pokemon. So let's get into the deck review and have some matches afterwards. Timestamps in the description as always. So let's get into the deck profile and review of the cards that we get in the Steam Deck. We have the main attacker here in Lycanroc. It has 120 hit points. I would prefer if it was 130 just to keep us out of range of a couple of attackers, but we'll make it work for us. And we do have this main attack here in Dangerous Rogue for a fighting and colourless energy, so we can use both of the split energy in the deck. We're doing base damage of 20, but we also do an additional 20 for each of our opponent's benched Pokemon. So we are relying on our opponent benching Pokemon, but in the Theme Deck format, pretty much every match you're going to be benching all of your Pokemon and filling your bench, as well as your opponent doing the same. And when that happens, you're going to be doing a maximum of 120 damage. This is very solid numbers. You're going to be knocking out pretty much most things in the format, and you're just going to be missing out on some of those stage 2 Pokemon. And the Accelerock attack here for an additional fighting energy only does 100 damage, unfortunately, so you do want to be sticking to attaching those energies elsewhere and just focusing on that Dangerous Rogue attack. So we do have a 3-2 line of that. The Rockruff itself here is actually pretty good as it has 70 HP, and that surprise attack could do potentially 50 damage, or it might do nothing, so hopefully you get some good flips on that. But it does also have a 1 retreat cost, which is very nice. And comboing with that, we have a secondary attacker here, which is also very strong. It is a stage 2 Pokemon here in Dusknoir, but it is going to be very powerful if you can get it set up, as it has 150 hit points, so more than the Lycanroc that we have, and its Dark Invitation ability allows us to look at our opponent's hand, and if we find a basic Pokemon there, we're able to put one basic Pokemon from their hand onto their bench and also put 30 damage on that Pokemon. So this is comboing with the Lycanroc, allowing us to put down Pokemon, forcing our opponent, I should say, to have more benched Pokemon, increasing the damage that we're doing with Lycanroc's Dangerous Rogue. And with Dusknoir here, its attack is also the same as Dangerous Rogue, but it's Mind Jack and it's doing 30 damage instead of 20 for each of our opponent's bench Pokemon. So again, if my opponent has a full bench, we're going to be hitting for 180 damage. Very big numbers, and you definitely will be knocking out everything in the format with that attack. So those are the two main attackers that we have in the deck. We do have a bunch of supporting Pokemon here. So for example, we have one copy of this Furfrou. For 1 energy, it's able to do 20 damage and allows us to draw cards until we have 5 cards in our hand. Very great in the early game for getting some nice early draws. And for also drawing cards here, we have one copy of Solrock, allowing us to draw 2 cards with that double draw attack for a colourless energy. Very strong. As well as for a fighting energy, we can do 20 damage, but if we have a stadium card in play, we're able to do 40 damage. This is some nice early pressure if you're able to find your stadium card early. And of course we do play a powerful stadium in this deck, and that's something that you don't see very often in theme decks, is a stadium card, so very good to see that. And we also have some other supporting Pokemon here in the Salandit, as well as it evolves into the Salazzle here, which is the main other supporting Pokemon, with Nasty Plot for 1 energy, allowing us to search our deck for 2 cards, any 2 cards that we want, putting them into our hand. Very good for getting set up for our evolution Pokemon, or if you need a supporter in a pinch, this is going to do it for you. As well as being able to use that severe poison attack to put poison on our opponent and making it so it deals 4 damage counters each and every time it affects our opponent in between turns. So a good alternative attacker if you need it. And we also have a couple of copies of Malamar here, using that Psychic Recharge ability to power up Psychic Energy from our discard pile onto our Pokemon, just allowing us to really power up some of our attackers much more quickly. That's great for, since a lot of our Pokemon do require 2 energy to attack with, such as the Lycanroc here. We can attach Fighting and then use Psychic Recharge to get that additional energy on. Moving on to the trainer cards here, we do have a whole bunch of different and varied trainer cards, and we'll just go through them in order here. We have one copy of Escape Rope. This is great for switching out and forcing our opponent to put something up that's not in the active, and giving us a different Pokemon to hit into. This could be useful if we want to finish something off, or if they only have one big attacker on their bench that they're trying to build up, we can force that into the active. We also have a copy of Field Blower, again very unusual card to see in the theme deck format, but it is a useful one, although there's not certainly a lot of Pokemon tool cards anymore in theme deck format, and again we are one of the only decks playing a Stadium card, so maybe not the biggest deal, but it's there if it comes up. We have a couple copies of Nest Ball, allowing us to search out a basic Pokemon from our deck, very useful. We have Rescue Stretcher, Pokemon Recovery, also very useful. We have a couple copies of Switch, pretty standard in any theme deck, just allowing you to keep your energy in play and having some free mobility between your Pokemon. It's never a bad thing. We have some copies of Timer Ball as well. Hopefully you can flip some heads on these, and that's going to allow you to search out your evolution Pokemon. Very strong card if you do get double heads. Then, as that I mentioned earlier, we have the Stadium card here. It's Brooklet Hill, which allows us to search our deck for a water or fighting Pokemon, and since we don't play any water Pokemon, we are going to be looking to get out things like our Solrock and Rockruff. And then going across here into the trainer cards, or supporter cards. These are all trainer cards. These are the supporter cards. Cynthia, shuffling our hand and then drawing 6 cards. Very powerful in theme deck. Then of course we have our playset of How in this particular deck, allowing us to draw 3 cards, pretty standard once again. Then we have Lady, Then we have Lady, which allows us to search our deck for 4 energy cards. This is great for, as well as thinning our deck, also getting us energy so that we can attach to our Pokemon. Then we have Lily, again, great way to draw cards if we can thin our hand out anyway. We also have Pokemon Fan Club, once again searching out basic Pokemon, very consistent and great host of supporters that we have here. Then we have Professor Kukui. Dealing that extra 20 damage can really be the difference maker in getting the knockout in theme deck format, as well as drawing those 2 cards can be a nice bonus. Then we have a Skateboard here, once again giving us some free movement of our Pokemon, and we can also make use of it if we happen to be put to sleep. So very useful card there. And of course, I nearly forgot, we do also have Weakness Policy. This doesn't come up all that often, but it certainly can be useful, and it is a nice include in this deck. And as I mentioned, we do have a split of the Fighting and Psychic energy, just a nice clean split of 10 of each. So certainly this is a very fun and pretty consistent deck to make use of, since we have the energy acceleration and recovery in Malamar, as well as a whole host of trainer cards to help us get set up, and then being able to hit for big damage in the mid to late game with Lycanroc and Dusknoir. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you like this deck, if you enjoy it, and let's get into some battles here with it and see if we can pull out some wins this week. Kicking off this match here, we did choose to go second so that we can use our supporter and potentially attack. And we did start off with a Pokemon Fan Club, which is a pretty good starting supporter, I would say. And since we have the Salazzle in our hand, I think I'm going to go and get the Salandit. So we'll get that, and let's see, I think the Solrock could also be good here. So we could draw cards or attack, or alternatively we could get maybe a second Inkay, or that Duskull. Any of these are good options really. I think I'll get the Solrock for now, just allow us to get some additional draw, and just in case our Salazzle goes down as well. Seems like a good idea. We'll attach a Psychic Energy to the active, and we'll actually go with the Hypnosis here and try and get our opponent to stay asleep. Unfortunately, they get the heads and they're able to wake up. So let's have a look at what my opponent has here. They have the Stuffle, which evolves into Beware. Not sure which Beware it's going to be, but they have the Professor Kukui, so they could be doing some big damage potentially this turn. But it just looks like a low 50 damage tickle, so we can survive that, no big deal. We do get the Lycanroc, which is a nice top deck, can always take that. Fortunately, we don't have any Psychic Energy, so we won't be able to make use of Salazzle here, since all of the attacks are Psychic Energy required, but we can at least retreat into our Solrock, and we can attach an energy and start using our double draw. But since my opponent is attacking us, we could also hit them for 20 damage. I think since our hand is pretty weak, we're going to go with the double draw here and hopefully get into some useful cards. We do get a Malamar, so we can make use of that Psychic Recharge and get that energy back that we had to discard. And my opponent is attaching a third energy, which tells me they have the Beware, which they do indeed have. Let's see what its attacks are. It has Dangerous Blow for 60 damage, but if the opponent's active Pokemon is a basic Pokemon, it does 60 more, and of course Solrock is indeed a basic, which means it's going to be able to get the knockout. Very unfortunate for us, getting that first prize loss. Now we'll have to decide here what we go in with. I think picking up the Salazzle is going to be our best bet, just in case we get into that Psychic Energy, as well as the fact that it will be able to survive a hit. And we were lucky there and able to get the Psychic Energy, so that was a great pickup. And since my opponent is really set on doing some big damage, I think we're going to have to go with the Severe Poison and start doing some damage of our own as well. We'll hold off on the Rescue Stretcher for now. I don't think we want to get Solrock back just yet. And I'll just settle for the Severe Poison, doing 40 damage going into their turn, and we'll also be doing 40 damage coming back into our own turn. So that's going to stack up quite nicely since they only have 130 hit points. And since they will be poisoned and it doesn't stack, it means that we can use Nasty Plot on this following turn to search for 2 cards. So my opponent gets the heads on the Timer Ball, which grabs them an evolution Pokemon, and they'll just go for that 60 damage attack and taking their 40 damage from poison. We get a Nest Ball, which is a very good draw indeed, allowing us to get a basic Pokemon into play. Let's see if we have another Malamar. We don't, so I'll just get the, oops, not that one, the Duskull, I think. I mean, it's that or Lycanroc, but we only have another Lycanroc since we only have 2 in deck. We do have the energy for it, but I would like to get the Dusknoir into play pretty soon, so we'll go for the Duskull here, try and get the evolution line going. We'll attach to the Lycanroc there, and as I mentioned, we'll go for the Nasty Plot. Since they are already poisoned, there's no use in poisoning them again since it won't actually have an effect. We can grab our Dusclops here to get the evolution, and we'll go and get a supporter card. I think Lily looks pretty good with the cards that we have in our hand, but of course we've managed to prize our Lily, so that's not going to be any use to us, and we'll settle for the Cynthia here instead, since that will net us more cards overall. So my opponent's taking 40 damage once again. They'll be able to get knocked out coming back into our turn. Now, of course, with the 60 damage that they are doing, they will be able to knock out our Salazzle here, since we only have 50 HP remaining. But of course, my opponent always has the option to retreat if they want to, and get the knockout with something else if they have the energy. But it looks like they are just going for that 60 damage knockout, and also getting the Beware knocked out, which is perfectly fine by me. We'll promote our Lycanroc since it is an attacker we can make use of here, and we'll be able to do a reasonable amount of damage, especially against some of these dark Pokemon. Being weak to fighting, we'll be able to hit them for weakness. And my opponent did put up this Houndour, which is weak to fighting as well, being a dark Pokemon, so we can once again get a knockout on that very easily. We'll put down the extra Duskull here. Certainly make use of the evolution since we do have a 3/2/2 evolution line of Dusknoir. And let's see where we want to attach this energy. I think we'll attach it to our evolution so we can attack with the Dusknoir. Also Psychic Recharge onto it, and we'll keep the Rescue Stretcher in our deck and hopefully make use of that later on in the game since we don't really need to at the moment. We'll put down the Rockruff and use our Timer Ball here, try and get some extra evolution Pokemon. We got very unlucky and get double tails, so that is a bit of a shame, but we can use our Dangerous Rogue attack here and get the knockout on this Houndour. And now we have caught up and tied it with our opponent, so we're both on 4 prize cards remaining. Now my opponent does promote the Hydreigon here, and if we take a look at our attack on the Hydreigon, it has Dark Destruction for 120 damage. You may discard an energy from this Pokemon. If you do, discard an energy from your opponent's Pokemon. So certainly a good attack there, doing that 120 damage. As I mentioned in the deck profile, it is perfect numbers and certainly the main reason why I would love Lycanroc to have just that 10 HP boost. But unfortunately that is not the case, and we're going to have to decide on what we can come up with here. We take a look at this Dusclops. It has Ambush for 30, plus potentially 30 more, but that doesn't seem very good. So I think putting up the Duskull here, and we can always use the escape rope to move around our Pokemon if we need to. We also have another Rockruff that we can put down, and let's see, we have our Psychic Recharge to make use of, so I will Psychic Recharge for sure, put an energy onto our Rockruff as well as a Fighting Energy. I really don't want to have my opponent chew through all of our Pokemon, so I'm going to use the escape rope now, and we'll go into our Rockruff and see if we can get an attack off with the surprise attack, try and flip heads on that and get some nice 50 damage in, and if we do that then we will be able to get a knockout here, which would be excellent. Unfortunately we get tails, so we're not going to be able to do any damage on this Houndour. We'll also see if my opponent can get into anything with this, since it is only doing a total of 10 damage, which isn't too, too detrimental. My opponent has the Professor Kukui here, so that is going to give them a boost for sure, allowing them to do a total of 30 damage now, which is still not quite close enough to be a knockout, but certainly we can hopefully get a surprise attack off once again on this following turn, or alternatively get into a supporter card, which would be even better for us. So there's the attack, 30 damage. Going back into our turn, we just get another energy card, which is very unfortunate. We can of course attach that, and we'll put it onto the Dusclops, just in case we get into that Duskull, or Dusknoir I should say, later on. Very confusing when they all start with Dusk, but hey ho. We'll go for a surprise attack once again, getting ahead on that finally, so we can get a nice knockout here on the Houndour and take our 3rd prize card of the game. We get into a Timer Ball, which is a very good pickup for us, since that will hopefully allow us to get into the Dusknoir if we're able to get just the 1 heads. If we can get 2 heads, that would be even better, since we could then get into a Lycanroc, although we don't have the energy just yet. So there's that attack for 120 damage, getting a knockout on us once again. My opponent goes down to 2 prize cards remaining. Let's see, do they have resistance to Psychic? They do indeed, so we will have to keep this in mind if we try and attack with our Dusknoir. But certainly we can put this up and retreat it if we need to. We draw into an additional energy, so we use our Timer Ball here, see what we can get into. We get the 1 heads, so I think here we have the Lycanroc that we can make use of, and that would get a knockout on our opponent, so we're definitely going to want to go for that for sure. We'll get the Lycanroc, attach a fighting energy, and then we have Psychic Recharge, getting us that second energy onto the Lycanroc. And then we promoted this Dusclops since we're able to retreat it because it has all of the energy. We're losing a lot of energy by doing that, but getting the Dangerous Rogue knockout on my opponent's big attacker here is going to be huge for trying to swing this game in our favour. It has been very unfortunate that the deck hasn't been super consistent throughout these matches, but we've tried our best, and it looks like my opponent also has a Salazzle for us, so they're going to be trying to get that going and either poisoning us or using that nasty plot to set up some more Pokemon if they so desire. They are just going with that severe poison, so we're taking 40 damage from the poison, and we finally get into a supporter card in the form of How, and we can also Psychic Recharge here to get some of this energy back that we had to discard. And we'll make use of How. Hopefully we get into something like a Dusknoir. We don't, but we get a Dusclops, so that's good for getting a second one set up for sure. And we'll also want to be attaching this energy, put a Psychic onto the Dusclops that already has the energy, and once again go with the Dangerous Rogue. So this is where you can see the deck struggles a little bit because our damage is really dependent on the amount of bench Pokemon that our opponent has, and of course they can control that unless we have our Dusknoir in play. But if we don't have the Dusknoir in play, we're going to really be struggling to get enough damage output to be able to take these knockouts here. So my opponent is retreating, they're trying to save their Salazzle, and we're also going to be knocked out from poison here coming into our turn regardless of what my opponent does. So they do hit into us anyway, but as I say, we have the poison damage which is very severe, so we will be losing our Lycanroc. Now I think we're going to have to go in with our Dusclops once again and hope that we can get into a useful card. We get into How, so we can draw 3 cards here, and we do finally get into our Dusknoir, so we can evolve into that and attach an energy to it, as well as use Psychic Recharge to recover some of our energy, put that onto our Dusclops. We use Brooklyn Hill. I don't believe we have any basic fighting Pokemon, we don't, but it's at least good to have down. Pretty sure my opponent won't be playing any stadium cards, and we have a Lady as well as 2 Professor Kukui as our supporters left, which is not ideal whatsoever, but at least we can make use of an attacker here and try our best to close out this match. So we'll put down this dude, and we'll go with a Mind Jack to get a knockout, doing a big 180 damage even with resistance, being able to knock out a Darkness Pokemon since it's doing 160. And we do draw into the Lily, which is a good supporter to have, and we are unfortunate in that Dusknoir here is weak to Dark, so if my opponent is able to get a good amount of damage with a Dark Pokemon, we will be losing this match, as it has came down to the wire, and we've just been able to hold on to the edge really and be able to, you know, stay in this match. My opponent is also playing the Escape Rope. We'll have to decide what we want to go in here. I think we need something that's going to survive as much damage as possible. This Dusclops has 90 HP, the Malamar has 90 HP as well. I think we'll go with the, although this has a lot of damage actually, we'll go with the Dusclops I suppose. Not the preferred attack whatsoever, but we could potentially use it to attack or get into our second Dusknoir. Now my opponent also has to make the choice what they're going to go into. They could go into that Salazzle, which they do in fact go into, and that's going to be allowing them to use the severe poison once again to get a little bit of damage in. Now we do have the Lily, so we could try and get a switch if we are so lucky. And unfortunately with the retreat cost being so high on Dusclops, we can't just attach an energy once again here. and we might be having to resort to something like a night roam or an ambush, but it looks like we do get the Dusk Noir, so we're able to evolve into that, and that'll cure our poison at least, give us an extra turn of being able to use that. We have a energy we can attach, and we'll also Lily. Hopefully we get into a switch card. We don't, but we can put down an Inkay just in case we need that, and we'll Psychic Recharge, get that Psychic Energy down, as well as make use of our Dusk Noir's ability, get down that little Stuffle, put 30 damage onto it, and we don't have enough energy to attack just yet, so we're going to have to pass over to my opponent. But if all they're going to do is go for a severe poison, that's going to be fine by me because we're going to be able to win the game at that point. My opponent also gets unlucky and has the double tails, so they don't get any evolutions off of that. And it does just look like the severe poison, so we have the energy in hand. We're going to be taking a big knockout here and actually win this matchup, which is excellent because this came down to the wire, and going down one prize card each remaining, getting a big knockout was awesome. It was a very close matchup and we were just able to squeeze it out, so certainly showing that the deck has potential. Let's get into another match. Now, starting this match off, it looks like we are up against the ever popular Charizard from Team Up deck, and unfortunately we do have to go first, so we're not able to draw any cards here, but we do get the Soul Rock to start us off, so we will be able to start using that double draw attack on this coming turn to start drawing into some cards here. And other than that, we don't really have a great hand at the moment, and our opponent does seem to have pretty much everything. Unfortunately, they did have to use that Kukui, which is a shame for them, but they do have the heads on this timer ball, so they get the Charmeleon for the following turn. We get into a How ourselves, so we're able to draw a couple more cards, and getting into a what's this card called? A Duskull, of course. The Duskull, getting that onto the bench is nice just to have it, but we don't have the evolution at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. We'll attach an energy to that, and I think we'll just go for a double draw here, see if we can get into some more useful cards. We were lucky enough and we did get into the evolution, so we can certainly start to work towards getting that Dusk Noir into play as quickly as possible anyway. Looks like my opponent has the Charmeleon and they're going to start attacking us, dealing a little bit of damage as well as the burn. So we'll just go with the evolution and continue to attach energy onto our Dusclops here. We do have the Cynthia, which we could make use of, but I don't really want to get rid of this Dusk Noir at the moment, so we're just going to continue to use double draw, and hopefully we don't get too much damage from this burn. Unfortunately, we do have to continue to keep it though. I was hoping that it would get cured, but my opponent either way has the Charizard. Even if they didn't, then they would be able to knock us out. Looks like they also have the Cynthia, so they're able to refresh their hand nice and easily. And they're just going to pass the turn over to us, so we get knocked out from that poison. But we can hopefully get the knockout here, since we do have the Dust Noir. We can see if they have any Pokemon that we can force into play, and we'll take a look here. We don't unfortunately get anything. My opponent also has a pretty dead hand there, and that means that we're only going to be hitting for a total of 90 damage, which certainly isn't optimal whatsoever. We do have the Inkay that we can put down, and I could also use the Escape Rope, but again that doesn't seem great as my opponent's going to be getting the knockout here with the Charizard no matter what. So we will just go with the attack here, the Mind Jack for 90 damage. If my opponent wants to get the knockout, then they're going to have to get an energy, which they do have already. So they're doing the Relentless Flame for 150 damage, which is exactly enough for the knockout. and now we're going to be stuck just with this Inkay here. We do have the Malamar, but we don't have the energy for it, unfortunately. So I can attach some of these cards, we'll play down the escape rope to force the Charizard out of the active spot, and then we can go into that Cynthia and hopefully draw it into a basic Pokemon. Or alternatively we could use the Rescue Stretcher here, and do kind of like that as well. Getting back some of those Pokemon into the deck seems pretty good. So we'll go with the Rescue Stretcher, shuffle in the full Ductwire line, and then we'll use our Cynthia, shuffle our hand into our deck, see what we can get into, just a whole bunch of energy. We do have Malamar at least, so we can Psychic Recharge, put an energy onto the Rockruff, and I think we could pass over to our opponent, and that way we can protect our Malamar, so I'm going to go for that, and we are losing a fighting energy, but our Malamar is just so precious that we're going to have to try and protect it as much as possible. So my opponent does have the energy, they could just retreat here and go into the Charizard, and it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. Just looking to continue to use this one Charizard, but they do have the Pokemon Fan Club as well, so they're going to be able to start setting up some other Pokemon. Getting the double Ponyta down here, it's not going to look good for us when they get the Rapidash down, but my opponent can use that ability which allows them to power up the Charizard all on its own, getting those energy onto itself and getting the knockout once again with Relentless Flame. So I think our best bet is to put up the Rockruff, and hopefully we can get an attack off here. We do get the Brooklet Hill as well, which is nice, so we can get down another Pokemon like the Rockruff, since we do only have the one Solrock in the deck, and that's unfortunately in the discard pile now since we did get it knocked out. We can recycle this energy onto the Rockruff once again, and we'll go for the surprise attack, hopefully getting some damage in, but we get the tails and we miss the knockout. Going over to my opponent, they get the Rapidash into play. All they need to do here is go with the Charizard again, putting energy onto itself and getting a nice easy knockout. And we can try our best and go for a surprise attack again, as well as using Malamar to power itself up. But certainly going up against a deck like this, you're going to struggle a little bit since it is so self-sustaining and we're kind of struggling to get set up really. We'll go in with the Rockruff. We just get another fighting energy unfortunately, but we'll take this Rockruff out of the deck just so that we can thin it again, and we'll go with the Psychic Recharge, once again putting that energy onto the Rockruff. And surprise attack, see if we can get the knockout here. We don't, we get tails again, so we'll have to go over to my opponent. They can easily just pick off our poor Rockruff once again, although they have got 130 damage, so they would actually be knocking themselves out if they went with the Roaring Resolve here. So they will be looking to get another Pokemon into play, I would imagine. Although considering how poorly we've been doing, they could actually just start attaching energy manually to the Charizard, or even attaching elsewhere, but looks like they're just going to pass it over to us, and they're just building up the Rapidash in the bank, and since they have those Nidoqueen, they can get any Pokemon that they desire. We'll go with the Psychic Recharge, get that Psychic Energy back and onto the Malamar, as well as attach an additional energy to it. And we will surprise attack, once again getting tails, failing the attack. Going over to my opponent, and I mean they have to be just over the moon with the amount of tails that we've been flipping on our surprise attacks, and yeah, it's not been surprising at all. The only surprise is the amount of tails that we've been getting. So my opponent has the Cynthia, shuffling their hand into their deck. Bit odd that they didn't use the Nidoqueen to search out a Pokemon first. That certainly would have been useful to thin out their deck, but hey ho, they didn't want to do that. They get the attachment as well, which is obviously what they were looking for, and they have the Charizard ready to go, so they can happily knock out their active Pokemon, and they don't mind giving up a prize since they're so far ahead in the match at this point. So let's see what my opponent opts to do. They're just going to pass it over to us once again, which is perfectly fine. That allows me to continue to try and set up some sort of a board state, although that's certainly not happening anytime soon with the draws that we're getting. We'll attach a Psychic Energy once again to the Malamar, and I think I will just pass it over to my opponent, because even if we get the knockout, then we're just taking one prize card, but if my opponent knocks themselves out, we're getting that prize. So I think I'd much rather just pass over to my opponent and see what they have for us. It's not going to make a difference whether we get the knockout there, and it could always come down to resources if we are able to stall them out. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're probably going to take the last two prizes before that ever happens. And they have the double Rapidash set up now as well, so they can always just use Agility for the rest of the game if they need to. They do go and knock themselves out as expected. Finally, the Charizard falls. We get a prize card for that, but as I said, they're so far ahead in the game now that we're not going to be able to catch up with them anytime soon. And of course they have the Agility on the Rapidash. They get heads on it. They're much luckier than us, and they're able to stop any damage that I would be able to do. So we do have Kukui here. I'm just going to go ahead and use it to see if we can draw some useful cards. But of course that's not going to be the case here. We do get an Inkay, being a Pokemon that we can put down, so we might as well put it down. And we'll also attach a Fighting Energy. We do have the switch, so I'll switch into the other Rockruff. That means that my opponent's not going to be able to take a knockout. And we'll see what they have for us. Perhaps they have something of their own, or they could go into the Charizard and take a knockout that way. But instead they're just going to hit us with the Agility, not even bothering to attach an energy, which is fair enough. And they did get the heads as well, so again we're not able to attack into them. We'll just have to continue to attach energy. I think we'll put a Fighting Energy onto the Duskull. And let's check our deck with the Bricklet Hill. We definitely don't have any more basic fighting Pokemon, so we'll shuffle that up, and I think we'll attach this somewhere just to have it down and pass over to our opponent, see what they have for us. Obviously they're going to be taking a knockout on our Rockruff, but there's not really much else that we could do about that, considering anything else that we put up is going to be taking some severe damage. Picking up a Malamar, I mean, we wouldn't be able to hit into them. They do get details now, so we could start doing a little bit of damage. I think our best bet here is to put up our Malamar, as much as I hate that. Or of course we could try and put up our Rockruff. So we'll go with that for now, I suppose, since it just has a 1 retreat cost. We do get into a Psychic Energy, which isn't particularly useful. And we'll just attach that Psychic Energy to the Dusclops. And we'll go with the retreat here into the Malamar, discarding the Psychic Energy, and of course using the Psychic Recharge to get that energy right back. And we can put it onto the Dusclops instead, and then go for the attack here, just for a pitiful 60 damage in return, since my opponent's also doing 60 damage, but at least we were finally able to hit them, and they did get the tails on that Agility. But since they are down to one prize, they are just going to be able to retreat here and get the knockout with the Charizard, which is very unfortunate, but that's just the way that it goes, since we weren't able to set up and our opponent was.